Hello, this is your host Akhil Navluri, and welcome to a brand new episode of the Techospace podcast series. In this podcast episode, I'm super thrilled and honored to welcome one of the most eminent and prominent industry leaders having 35 plus years of experience in the IT space, and that's something really remarkable. So, welcoming Mr. David Galtieri, the founder of Depthnode.ai company and CFK Holdings. So, David, it gives me an absolute pleasure welcoming you to this podcast episode of mine and the session. So, David, why don't you introduce yourself to our audience and our listeners?
Thank you, Akhil. Yes, it's an honour to be here today. Lovely to have been asked to join your podcast. So, look, thank you once again, and certainly 35 years has been quite a while in industry, and I'm sure that we'll talk a little bit more about that. But very quick introduction, background in computer science, software engineering and electronics engineering. And yes, at my age right now, I've decided that it's about time I do an AI startup. We're smack in the middle of artificial intelligence. So yes, I've launched or about to launch Depthnode.ai as a platform for users to create their own artificial intelligence conversational assistants, and allow that to help their business grow, to gain more leads, support their customers better. And certainly it's my way of thinking that every product, information and service business should actually use conversational AI to generate leads, help their customers and grow their business in the future. And so I hope that's certainly what Depthnode will help our clients do. But we'll talk about that a little bit more later. So Akhil, over to you, and let's get started.
Amazing. So, listeners, and the common point between me and David is me and David, we both are based out of Melbourne, and, we are just, separated by a few, let's say, a few kilometers away. But again, yeah, it's the Melbourne Connect here.
It
So,
is.
at the stroke of this hour, 3 p.m. Melbourne time, let's kick off with the podcast episode. So, David, now, we were just talking about your entire experience. Now, if I would just like to, have a brief about that. So, David, can you give me a walkthrough about your 30 plus, or let's say 35 plus years of experience in the IT industry? So, how would you start with?
Right. Well, 35 years, it's certainly a lot to pack in a small amount. But I think it all started probably from about the age of 13. Yeah, the very first computer I got, which was known as a Commodore VIC-20. It's in the archives. You can find them in the museums these days. Maybe if you're in the technology museums, as a small computer, a keyboard, a computer within a keyboard, plugged into an old black and white TV, little TV that I had in my bedroom, and it came with a couple of books teaching you how to begin programming in BASIC, BASIC, Beginner's All-Purpose Symbolic Instruction Code. And I was infatuated with that. Look, I wasn't much of a school person, school kid. I didn't read a lot, but the only two books I think I've ever read from from front to back were these two programming manuals that came with this computer. I fell in love with writing computer code and having the computer do what I told it to do. It was just, to me, it was just amazing. Ever since that, I think that's where it all started. A passion for technology, a passion for computer programming just began. And so I became an enthusiast in not only computer programming, but in electronics and electronics engineering. Well, obviously, as a 13-year-old, I didn't. I think I got my first soldering iron probably about a year or so later, and I started to tinker around with building electronic circuits and trying to understand how it all worked. Probably by the age of 16, I think, I pretty much knew that's it. I was going to become a software developer, a computer programmer, and it basically began from there. I studied computer science, mathematics, and electronics engineering, graduated in 92 with an honours in artificial intelligence as well. I wrote a thesis on AI, and that's sort of now it's I'm going all around back, because when I started in 1992, AI was in its infancy. We, didn't have much computer power and things like that. And now it's like I can finally build what my thesis was about back in 1992, some 32 years ago. From then I went into industrial control systems, worked there for about 5 years, and I was writing software to weigh 50-ton trucks and mix fertilizer and concrete. Moved on to working pretty much all over Asia Pacific, so throughout Australia, New Zealand, Hong Kong, China, building and installing systems that I wrote, and this was all in industrial control. And then in 1996, I actually, on my sort of spare time, started writing a CRM, and that basically sort of launched my career into financial services, because that CRM caught the eye of the owner of a startup company in financial services, and I basically sold it to him, and he said that he wanted me to work with him. So in 1997, I moved out of industrial controls and into financial services, and I worked for an up-and-coming startup called Bourse Data, and we created software for the financial services markets. We went to a public listing in '99. We went through the internet boom and then bust in 2001. We were bought out by one of Australia's largest banks. A few years later, we bought it back from the bank, myself and a few of my colleagues. We rebuilt the business, sold it again in 2006, and then I started my own consulting from then on. So probably from around 2005, 2006, after we sold our internet business, I began my business consulting and worked for various large Australian firms. And then in 2016, I think it was, I moved into the not-for-profit space, starting off with aged care, in business planning for aged care. In Australia, aged care was going through some government reforms. And so I was brought in to help one large organisation work their way through those reforms and put together a business plan on how to move forward. I then moved into the disability services space. So again, in Australia, we have our national disability insurance scheme. And so I worked with one of Australia's largest NDIS providers to do a lot of business planning, corporate rollouts, property rollouts, technology rollouts for them. And now finally, after all that's closed, I've decided that it's time to launch my own Depthnode.ai startup. And so there's my career in a nutshell.
That's a brilliant. I would just say, it's more like a timeline. It just reminds me of all those things when famous celebrities, actors, they talk about their films and you're reflecting. So it's no less than that. Everyone's journey and career is almost like a thing, or let's say like a film that they have to look back at, and a lot of beautiful achievements, proud moments, and that totally, sums up the point. Now, David, you've just told me that you work for corporate companies and you work for a startup company. If I would just like to put this out to you, what is that, small difference that you find between working for a corporate company and for a startup company?
Right. Well, look, and this is the thing with this is that they're both challenging in their own way. The difference is that obviously for a startup, I'm the boss. Everything, the decisions I will make or break the way that we go forward. Is the pressure the same? Is the work hours the same? Well, in corporate expects loyalty. They expect long hours. They expect deliverables. They expect all of those things. But so does the startup. A startup, there's no one sort of calling you into a meeting. There's no one putting pressure on you. You're actually putting pressure on yourself. You're the one making the decisions. You're the one who has to bring the team together. You're the one who has to make sure that all the priorities are set. You're not looking at your boss to tell you what to do. You are the boss. You are the person who's actually making it happen. So there's pressure in getting things done, but there's also pressure in the fear of failure. What if it doesn't work? That's actually a big thing sometimes. And sometimes I think back and I say, oh, what am I doing this for? What if it doesn't work? Look at all the competitors that I have out there. Look at how fast technology is changing, which is just mind blowing at the moment. AI, and we're in the space of generative AI, but generative AI is changing at such a rate that between September last year, when we sort of really kicked things off, to now, the likes of OpenAI and Google and Anthropic and Meta and all of the big names, the amount of releases they have made to their AI models and to their AI platforms is mind blowing, right? So even
Absolutely.
just
Yeah.
keeping up with that in itself is a challenge. But the fear, the fear of failure, the fear of not doing the right thing, that's a big thing for a startup. At least in a corporate setting, they've got like their corporate business plan, they've got their corporate strategy. So you've got this guide to follow you. They've got, maybe decades of history that they can work off. Whereas in a startup, you haven't got any of that. It's you're literally. I'm trying to think while I speak. Elon Musk put a startup quite eloquently. He talked about it being like standing on the edge of a cliff, looking out to an ocean of nothing and not knowing where
Yeah.
you go. I'd love to actually get that quote, but it was something like that. Why would you put yourself through starting a startup?
Yeah.
There's more easier things to life than that. But yes, that's I think that's how I can bring the two together.
That's a complete a clear understanding, I think, for me and for our listeners. Now, me and and my listeners, we would just like to understand this, David. Like, can you just give some insight with respect to your expertise in software applications development, and let's say with respect to the ICT infrastructure and the current craze of AI, which is the artificial intelligence.
Yeah, sure. Well, look, I think I'll pick up from something that I left off with just a moment ago, and that is the evolution of AI. If we think that AI has moved quickly in the last 6 to 8 or 12 months, it has, in comparison to how it used to be. So I think the evolution of AI since when I sort of started in 1992, where literally the fastest, the best computer that I had available to me as a researcher probably had about the same power back then as a calculator today, or like an old iPhone 6 probably has way more computing capacity. When I started, there was no NVIDIA GPUs around,
Right.
so we had to think about how can we make our programming as efficient as possible to do those calculations quick enough that at least it seems reasonable. Um, so it's one of those things where it's evolved so much since then, um, that I look at my journey in that time, in that space, and I think the biggest thing is the change that we've seen throughout this time, right? The change in technology, the change in infrastructure, the way that things are done, and how now artificial intelligence will change things yet again. There's a concept of and it's something called the diffusion of innovation. There's one item, and it's like an 80-20 rule, right? It's sort of like this, that goes something along like this. I think it's called the diffusion of innovation concept. The time it takes for the market, for 20% of the market to accept the technology, is the same time it'll take for 80% of the market to accepted technology.
Yeah.
And I did a little bit of research on this recently, and just with generative AI, we're probably now just past that 20%. So if we talk about the concept of ChatGPT or the transformer models, ChatGPT sort of hit Main Street, I think it was like early 2023, 2022, 2023. And it's probably taken about 18 months. So, if we say 2023, 2024, here we are in 2025, it's probably taken about 18 months to 2 years to exceed that 20% user base. And today, recently, OpenAI reported something like 600 million active users per week. 600 million active users per week. That number is incredible.
Really.
And we're just at the 20% mark. So if we're saying that we're at 20% and it's taken about 18 months to 2 years to get there, what is the next 18 months to 2 years going to look like? And this is why there's an artificial intelligence craze at the moment, because if we're at 600 million users now and we've got 5 times more growth, or let's say 4 times more growth, well, the market sits at 2.4 billion weekly users. That's just incredible, right?
Really.
Now,
Yeah.
I don't know OpenAI's or Google's numbers around that, but even that number itself is just mind-blowing. And look, these principles have worked in technology throughout. So if your listeners would like to go back in history and have a look at any new technology that's come out, there's this diffusion of innovation principle, and the time it takes for 20% acceptance is the same time it takes for 80% acceptance. And it sort of draws this S curve. They call it the S curve in diffusion of innovation. I think that's been the big change. And in anything I do, like, I haven't really worked in industrial control systems since 1995. But last year, a friend of mine who was bringing in some water purification technologies from the States,
Okay.
he spent big money bringing this equipment into Australia to purify water. And I think this is an amazing concept, a brand new technology. And he asked for my help to install this in a gold mine here in Victoria. And
Okay.
and because he knew that I had done some industrial control stuff years ago, he thought, oh, yeah, I'll be able to help him. And I did. I looked at what's available now. And even though the concepts of how we did things 30 years ago or 25 years ago is essentially the same, again, the technology that's available and the ease at which you can do now what used to take us so long years ago, technology has advanced everywhere we look. And that's the brilliant part about where we're living in today.
Absolutely.
So, I think that the future of AI is amazing. The craze that we're in right now is incredible. It's an incredible time to be alive, I think, in technology.
Yeah. That's absolutely a true point. And I really feel blessed, that, there's a lot of technology growth happening everywhere. And, that actually makes us feel, that we need to adapt certain things. And what I feel personally, David, is that, every technology has to be adapted in a right way. It cannot be misutilized, because what happens is when there is an advent of new technology, or let's say a new methodology that has just come into the market, people just take it for granted and they're like, okay, we have to just go all out with respect to, doing the applications. But I feel there needs to be a balance between, showing that applications for.
Oh, look, if yeah, absolutely. And I think, with generative AI, there was a good colleague of mine, friend of mine, is a brilliant marketer. And I think it was early last year, maybe even towards the end of 2023, with the advent of ChatGPT and everybody going mad about it, He said to me, he said, watch out, there is going to be a flood of what he termed, and I excuse the terminology, a flood of bullshit marketing coming our way. All right, a flood of BS marketing coming our way, because he said that people are just going to throw all they can at AI, allow it to generate all that they want, and then flood the market with rubbish. He was telling me that he saw books on Amazon, books being published on Amazon that literally have been completely written by AI, right?
What?
And now
Seriously?
available for sale. And it's
Oh,
absolutely true. In fact, he said to me, and this is you made a point just a moment ago about like the safety of the technology, on how we use the technology, and with anything, I think there's going to be the users of technology that use technology for the good, and there's going to be the
yes.
ones that use technology for the bad. And we've seen now, phishing emails or scam emails get a lot more professional because AI is generating them. We've seen scammers approach the younger generation, like a colleague of mine who's actually he's quite big in cybersecurity. He told me a story only a couple of weeks ago that his teenager, his 18-year-old boy, who was using Discord, the chat application for
Yep.
gamers,
Mhm.
he somebody reached out to him through Discord, and it sounded exactly like one of his mates on Discord, like the same looking
Oh my
messages,
God.
the same
Okay.
jokes, the same this, and then all of a sudden, this person who was an imposter, pretending to be his friend, actually started asking for some credit card details because he needed to buy something and he'd lost his card. So this young fella was smart enough to pick up his phone and ring his mate and say, "Is this you? What's going on?" And he goes, "No, I'm not even home, not even on my computer." So what had happened is someone had hacked into his Discord, used an AI to look at his chat history, and the AI began reaching out to all of his Discord friends, sounding like him, messaging like him. Um,
Oh God.
and that was just a scary situation. So we'll see a lot of that, and that's why there's a lot of organizations looking at the safety of AI. How can we safely use I mean, you're not going to be able to stop the criminals, the bad people, the people that want to cause harm on humanity from using AI. Hopefully, governments and large organizations can use AI to their advantage to actually try and counter what rubbish or BS comes out, right, from this
Yeah.
wave of AI use.
Agreed, agreed. That totally sums up the point. Now, David, if I would just like to ask you, like, what I mean, how do you, try to, bridge the expertise that you have with respect to the software applications development? Like, a more spotlight on that?
Sure. So, look, in terms of software development, um,
Yep.
okay. So, and AI, like AI and software development, is that what you're sort of thinking of?
Yes, the integration of that, or you could just even tell about the standalone thing based on it.
Yeah. Look, um, software development. One of the biggest gripes I have about software over the last many years is we coined a term for software probably about 10, 15 years ago, and we called it bloatware. The word bloat, fat, right? It wasn't
Oh,
software anymore, it was fatware, right? I won't name any large organization that creates software development tools, but one very large software development tool provider and operating system provider came out with a set of tools, probably I'd say around the 2002, 2002 mark. And it was all focused on making software development easier, which, hey, look, I grew up during the time when we were writing software in assembler, right, which is the machine, like machine code. So, and when that language that I mentioned, BASIC, came out, it
Yeah.
was like amazing, because you could all of a sudden now not have to use assembler or instruction code. You could write in something that resembled English, the English language a little bit,
The English language. Yeah.
like the command print. You want to print something on the screen, you can use the print command, as opposed to using assembler, which you had to do some stupid things like load up the characters you wanted to print on the screen one by one, and then push them onto the stack, and then pop them off the stack and put them into the video memory location where you wanted them to appear on the screen. I mean, that's ridiculous, but that's how, if you wanted something to work fast, a piece of software to like, if you needed to write a driver to drive a piece of technology in the field, and this technology might have been counting pulses at 10,000 pulses a second. There's no way that you could use a standard programming language to count 10,000 pulses a second back then. You had to use machine code. You had to use assembler. So
Yep.
anything that came out to make the computer programmer's life easier was a blessing, was very well received. As I said, so in around 2001, 2002, this library was released to the world, and it caused software to become huge, because the simple act of putting a dialog box on the screen to accept somebody's name, address, and phone number, instead of being like the way it was done with Microsoft Foundation classes or Windows Foundation classes in, say, the late 80s, early 90s, or even towards the late 90s, all of a sudden you had these tools which were now drag and drop. You could drag and drop a dialog box on the screen, and you could drag and drop fields into that screen. But that dialog box, it didn't just include the code just to draw that dialog box. It included the code to do every single thing that a Windows operating system could do. So when you delivered a piece of software, what you used to be able to deliver on, back in those days, a floppy disk, which was like 1.4 meg in size, now you needed 20 floppy disks just to do the smallest thing, right? And so that's why software became so big, and so fat, because in order to make the programmer's life a bit easier, or at least not make the programmer's life easier, but let's say to make the programmer more productive, right? To make the programmer more productive, so the programming team could actually be more productive in producing software quickly. All these libraries were introduced that obviously took away from having to program each and every single item. Everything was done for you. All you needed to do was put them together and put the logic together. So now we take that and we take it to today, where we've got access to programming co-pilots like GitHub Copilot or Anthropic's latest Claude version 4, which is probably, and ChatGPT, 4.0 or 03, which is probably their best programming model today. And we've got tools now that literally, by using simple language, a simple natural language prompt, you can actually get it to develop software for you to do anything you want. And I think that where we are today with that, and I've done some testing on this, I think as right now, if I was to try and build a fully fledged full system, I think it struggles a little bit, because as the system grows bigger and bigger and bigger, AI struggles a little bit. You have to be you have to help the AI pinpoint where the problem is that needs to be resolved. So
Exactly.
as a computer programmer, I could probably deal with that. as a non-technical person, which is where they're all aiming to get. All of these companies are aiming to get to the non-technical person to be able to develop their own software application.
Agreed. Yeah.
I think it'll get there, but certainly if I want to develop a piece of complex algorithmic code today, I could sit down with Google Gemini or Anthropic Claude or OpenAI, ChatGPT, and within 15 minutes, I could have my very complex piece of algorithmic code ready. I copy and paste that into an editor, make a few little changes, which the AI tells me what to change, compile it and run it, and it works. That's the
Yeah.
amazing thing, is that it works. And I think that that's where we are today. And the code that these systems are producing is very, very efficient. So, like my marketing friend said a couple of years ago, there's going to be a wave of BS marketing coming our way. Be prepared, Akhil and listeners. There's going to be a wave of software applications coming at you, a
Yeah.
tsunami, right? There's
Tsunami.
going to
Yeah.
be a tsunami of software agents. Agentic AI is the next big thing. And there will be billions and billions of agents that will do everything from, run your washing machine to pop your toast up when it's perfectly brown and ding your microwave when the rice is nice and fluffy and cooked to perfection. There will be a tsunami of agents, of AI agents coming our way in the near future.
Absolutely, absolutely. I really feel I feel that, a particular departmental store will have its own agentic AI, to help the customer. Okay, this is the this is the stock you need to catch, or let's say this is the aisle you need to go through. So instead of normal people, you'll have the agentic AIs assisting the customers, I feel.
Oh, look, Akhil, I saw a video, a traveller, popped up on one of my feeds, a traveller I think he was going through Beijing, China, and he was basically taking a video, and he said, "Have a look at this, guys." And he was at the airport, and he stood in front of it's one of those terminals that tell you when your flight's departing. And on the ground there was a picture of 2 feet, basically saying, stand here and look at the screen. And what it did was, using facial recognition, it detected who he was, and it brought up all his flight details. And it
Oh
said,
my.
"Hi, Mr. So and so, please proceed to gate whatever. Your flight's departing at this time, boarding's at this time." And it was it. That's how it's going to work. Exactly what you were just saying. You can walk into a department store and, yeah, you don't have to go to the information screen anymore. You could probably you'll have the department store app, and you just talk to it and say, where's the car part that I need? And it'll just say, yeah, go there. Or better still, just say, go to the pickup point. We'll have it ready for you in 30 seconds, you
In
know?
30 seconds. Do you have a trolley for me, or do you have a basket where I can carry the groceries? So even those kind of an assisting also will come in.
Oh, look, definitely, definitely. We will get to and I hope it makes our life easier. Like, certainly, I talk about this as part of launching my AI startup, how AI has actually helped accelerate the
Yeah.
development of the business. It's actually, I think it's cut years. It literally has cut years off. If I was to launch a startup 10 years ago, it would have taken me 3 or 4 times the amount of time that it's taken to actually launch it currently, because of how AI has assisted.
Agreed, agreed. That completely, gives a point, and I just got the understanding of, David, what you were just giving me a walkthrough about. Now, David, if I would just like to ask you this, like, would you like to share your experience of, working with these major, eminent Australian and global organizations, starting from the likes of Shell, BP, Macquarie Bank, Westpac, Boral, and, and the NFP space. So, how was that experience all the way?
Yeah, look, I think the biggest thing that I can share with you and the listeners, Akil, is probably the contrast, the contrast of the industrial and the corporate worlds. I think that's probably the biggest thing that I'll pick up on. You know, let's talk about corporate and industry. And when I talk about industry, I mean industrial control systems, which is where I started. And then I'll think about because when we talk about places like Macquarie Bank or Commonwealth Bank, and we talk about Westpac Bank, and you mentioned Boral, and another company that I've worked for was CSR Ready Mix, who doesn't. They've been bought by another building company now. Shell. I worked for Shell, BP. The big thing is they're both early risers. I could have been up at 6:30 in the morning. I could have been on site 6:30 in the morning, 100 meters up a silo, howling winds, trying to fix a sensor that wasn't working, that read moisture on sand or something. But by the same token, sitting there cold in my dirty work clothes, but they've still got high expectations. They still want delivery. They still need things to be delivered on time. If the concrete isn't being poured at 7:30 in the morning, there's going to be someone screaming at some building site that didn't receive their loads, right? The loyalty is there. You need to show clients that you're working for them, right? And it's the same. So from the dirty overalls and the boots out in the field to the prim and proper tie, suit, shoes, getting up at 5 in the morning to catch the first flight to Sydney because you've got to be at Macquarie Bank at 8 o'clock in the morning for a meeting. They expect you to be there. They expect you to be on time. They expect you to look and $1 million. They expect you to deliver the product that you've told them you're going to deliver. So there's the same thing. The high expectations are there. The loyalty needs to be there. What happened to me once, and I was a young, probably young programmer, and I was doing work for a large, Pivot Incitec, large fertilizer company, and I was one of 3 programmers at the company that I was working at, and I was the lead. I was the lead programmer, and we had many clients, and probably we had 7 or 8, maybe 9 projects on the go at one time. But without a doubt, Pivot Incitec would have been our largest client at the time. Now, this particular site, he was the Australian regional manager. His name was Lloyd. And Lloyd had very tough expectations, very tough. So he was in the corporate world. He was corporate Pivot Incitec. But I was in the industrial control systems world. So this is where the two worlds met, right?
Yeah.
And I remember he would constantly ring me, David, when are we going to have this ready? David, why is this not going? David, why is that there? When is that going? Blah, 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 blah. And one day, I'm new in my career. I've probably only been in this job 3 years or 4 years. I made the mistake of saying to him, Lloyd, look, you got to understand, you're not my only client. I've got other clients that I'm trying to help. Now, at the time, I didn't see the problem with that, but I reckon it took 10 minutes after I hung up the phone with him for our general manager, the company CEO, the sales manager, and the GM all came at the same time, sat in the boardroom, and the sales manager came out and called me and said, David, could we have a chat? Oh, I thought, oh, God, I need to get my work done. What do these guys want to talk to me about? And that was what they wanted to talk to me about, that I told this client that he wasn't my only client. The lesson in that is make every client feel that they are your only client. Big lesson for me that day, because no matter what should have happened, as I should have said to him, Mate, I am here for you, Lloyd. I'm doing everything I can for you. Do not worry, I will get this done. And what it also taught me is that when you're working in the corporate world as an employee, you're there for only one of two reasons. Listen, you are there for only one of two reasons. You're either there to make the company money, or you're
Yep.
there to make your boss or your boss's boss look good. Remember that. There's only two reasons you're there. One, to make them money. Two, to make your boss. If you're not making them money, you've got to make your boss or your boss's boss look good. That's it. If you can achieve one or both of those things, you will move on in the corporate world. If you can't do one or the other, you're as good as gone. And that's it,
Absolutely.
right?
I think that's a key takeaway for our listeners, probably, such golden words from David, having huge experience. So I think listeners, you need to just have a wrap of this, and for sure.
Absolutely, absolutely have a wrap of that one for sure. And then just to finish it off, to finish off your questions, we move into the not-for-profit sector. Wow, what a difference. Now, look, they expect the work to get done. They want the loyalty, but there's always tomorrow in NFP. It's not a problem. It's fine. Oh, you're not feeling well today? Doesn't matter. Take a few days off. If you can't get it done by tomorrow, don't worry. Next day will be fine. The thing is with NFP is it's the reward. We had a saying while I worked at a few of these organisations, is that when you work for a not-for-profit because your computer screen is lifted up by some old books or some reams of paper. Your stand-up desk is the cheapest one you can find at Officeworks that you put on your desk. The office is neat and is clean, but there's stuff everywhere, right? That's how you work for an NFP. But the rewards are there, because when I worked in disability services, I knew that the reason I was doing what I was doing, even if I was putting in 12-hour days, I was doing it because what my work was to make the life of people that deliver these disability services better. Because somebody who's going to receive a better service will end up having part of their life feel a bit better. And that was really important. And that's what made it rewarding. So yes, it's a bit of a laid back attitude. There's always tomorrow, but the reward, when something comes out, the reward is much greater.
Absolutely, absolutely. That totally sums up the point. Now, David, heading on to the ICT, ICT space. Now, David, can you just give me an overview of your experience while you were holding senior positions in the ICT operations and the ICT management, sales management, and along with that, marketing?
Yeah, look, I think the biggest takeaway from that time of my life is I had a motto. It made up of three words: trust, commitment, and care. And I heard this from a motivational talk probably in about 2001. A US, I think it was a US baseball coach. He basically talked about trust, commitment, and care. And he said that if I'm to do business with somebody, and I ask myself, and I took on this ever since I heard this, and it changed the way I look at people and the way I deal with people. And it was this: I ask myself three questions about you. Can I trust you? Will you show me commitment in what you've got to do for me and my business and my company? And will you show care for me, my business, my family, my company? And if the answer is yes to all those three, I will do business with you. If the answer is no to any one of them, trust, commitment, or care, you're out of the room. So what ended up happening is whenever I needed to negotiate a contract or a deal with a supplier, I'd basically bring the suppliers, put them in the room, and let them deliver their pitches to me. And it was good to have them in the room together because they could deliver their pitches over each other, right? But what it allowed me to look at is to look at each of these suppliers, whether they were together or one at a time, and ask myself, who can I trust? Who's going to be committed to delivering the service products that I need? And who's going to care about me and my business and what I believe in? And normally, one out of the three would tick all three boxes and they would be the ones to get the job, even if their price was maybe higher than one of the others. So I think that, and now I look at that, if you're employing somebody, right, ask those three questions. Can I trust you? Are you going to be committed? Will you show some care, right? And I also learned, talking just on the point of employment, always my theory was be slow to employ, be slow to hire, and fast to fire, right? Right?
Oh, that's a
Yeah,
great quote.
take your time to employ somebody. Make sure you employ the best person for the job. But by geez, um, you know, get rid of them quick. Get rid of them quick if they're no good. So, and the one time that I did not adhere to that caused me almost to a stop in my career. And this was I was a very senior in an organisation, and I was probably acting CEO at the time, CEO. Short contract stint, so didn't really mean that much to me. But we had employed before I got in. They had employed a managing marketing manager, marketing and sales manager. Now she was on 3 months probation, and about a week before her probation ended, I was in Sydney,
Okay.
and she like almost ran a coup against me in the office while I wasn't there. Now, a couple of the staff who, I had quite a large team, and a lot of them were very loyal to me, rang me and said, listen, she's doing this, this, and this against your back, David. What's going on? And I said, oh, okay, all right, leave it with me. I'll sort it out. So I knew that she started very early in the morning. So Monday morning, I got to the office before she did. So I got to the office probably about 6:45 because she was always in at about 7:15. Waited for her to arrive. And when she arrived, had a chat to her in the boardroom. Now, my intention was, that's it, she's out, right? But she managed to convince me that she didn't mean any disrespect, and all she was trying to do was trying to, be proactive and step up and, do the right thing while I wasn't in the office, etc., etc. There was a funny feeling about it, but she was a senior person. I thought I'll give her the benefit of the doubt, and I let her probation lapse. Oh boy! Once her probation lapsed, she went full on against everything that we were about,
Oh my.
caused a world of trouble, and unbelievable. And I couldn't do anything to get rid of her. In the end, she convinced the board of directors against the business plan that I had put forward, convinced them that her ideas were better. So I decided at that time that it was a good moment for me to not renew my contract because it was coming up for renewal. They gave her the position to lead the company, and everyone got retrenched 3 months later because her ideas were so bad that the company had already started to go backwards. And in fact, they ended up winding up the business and sold it off to somebody else or something. I'm not exactly sure. I've never really followed up too much, but yes, stick to your guns. If you're in senior positions and you feel that somebody is not right, they've got to go. They've got to go straight away. Um, In terms of everything else, I think the biggest thing is prioritizing work, right? So we had the concept of what was known as the top seven projects. You try to take on, I was doing some consulting for a large Australian organisation recently, and they had 20 projects on the go. And I said, they said to me, oh, we're not getting any headway on our projects. And I said, well, of course you're not. You're trying to do 20 at the same time. You haven't got 2,000 staff. You've got a team of 120 people. There's no way you can do 20 projects at the same time. So we had this concept of the top seven, the magic seven, or the magnificent seven, as we talk about the top technology companies on the NASDAQ. So there's
Right.
something about the number seven. My favorite number. I was born on the seventh as well.
Okay.
So you look at it from a perspective of it's a number that you can manage. And for one of those top seven to change, if you've got another project that needs to be worked on, well, one of those other seven has to come out before another one comes in. So what we used to do at a high level on a weekly basis is reprioritize our project schedule. We always used to leave a bit of room at the bottom of our project schedule just in case, like we had issues come in that needed to be resolved on an emergency basis. But we had a priority matrix for our project management team, and we would basically using sort of a quantifiable matrix, we could identify which projects should be in that top seven and which shouldn't. So that was how we managed projects. Like I mentioned before, building a team is crucial. To have the best
Yep.
people, the right people, is actually very, very important. Um, the thing is also businesses need to grow, and in order to grow a business, you need leads, you need sales. So you need a very strong marketing and sales presence. But at the same time, not only do you need to have your marketing and sales, you need to have good ops, good operations, and good customer support. So that's your back end. So one of the big things about sales is that you need appealing marketing. You need marketing that goes out there and grabs the attention of your audience. You need that audience to come in and fill your funnel. You need a good sales team to actually work that funnel to create and develop business, to create new customers, to bring new people into the business, because you're always losing clients. You've always got this churn rate, as it's called. Your clients coming in, clients going out. But of course, if you have good operations and good support in there, then your churn rate isn't as bad, and so your business grows. But also, in order to make sure that all that works, you need to look after your team. So we had this concept of our make raving fans out of your customers. It's one of the things about the early Apple community, and probably still today. But Apple, Steve Jobs had this ability to create fans, to create people that just love the Apple ecosystem, right? That's why you had these queues of people lining up at the stores for the launch of the new iPhone. They would create what the term is raving fans, that people that just can't shut up about how great your products and services is. And
Yeah.
that's what you want, because word of
Yeah.
mouth is what sells. But you also want to create that culture in your team, right? Your team, you need to have a brilliant team culture in order for your team to be motivated to get the work done and to look after your clients and to deliver what your clients need. And that's one of the hardest things for a company to do, is to maintain that culture. Um, so very, very important. And I think that all of these things put together well help a business grow and flourish.
That completely explains the point, David. Now, David, if I would just like to ask you, like, what is your take on the business management consulting services? Like, what do you infer from that?
Yeah, look, it's funny. You might say, "Oh, so you don't really do much, so you just own your own consulting business." um, no, look, I've been a business consultant now, probably. Well, I think probably started around 2006. So when we sold the Boral starter business, and I think we sold it in 2006. I spent the next couple of years going around the country delivering talks on safe investing. Um,
Right.
so I won't, even though I was working for myself and I essentially had my consulting business running, I was really sort of going around the country teaching. And I did that probably until around 2007, 2008. And then that's when I sort of took on this CEO role, or yeah, it was a chief executive role, but it was as a consultant. Had a bit of a break because in 2008, late 2000, in fact, and that's the story I told before about that marketing manager and me sort of not renewing my contract in 2008 came at a perfect time because my father fell quite ill, and
Okay.
it was very opportunistic. I decided that April 2008 I'd stop working, wouldn't renew my contract, enabled me to spend the next 3-4 months with my father until he died in August in 2008. And then it actually enabled me to spend another 3 months, until the end of the year, to help mum through that process of grieving. And it wasn't until February 2009 that I sort of got back into the corporate world. So probably 2009 was my first role as a business consultant, and I've been there ever since. So when you're working for yourself, you're it. You're the name on the door. You're the name on the business card. Um, you're the one that's delivering the service. You're the one that's delivering the customer relationship. And my thought was always build a relationship first, building the relationship first, and then build the business, right? And that's how I worked when I was in, because I've been in sales, I've been in marketing, even as a corporate, as a sort of like a corporate salesperson, which I did for a number of years. So when we bought our business, when we bought the Boral starter business off the bank, I actually took on the role, not in IT, I took on the role of Director of Sales and Education. And what I learnt in that was that in order to be able to build trust in a customer, you have to build a relationship with them. And for me, it wasn't about selling them a product. For me, it was about how can our product help them better? How can our product solve their problem? What's their problem? How can it solve it? And I don't need to sell anything because once I show them how our product can solve their problem, they just want to buy it. And so
Absolutely. Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
how I built a network of people to sell our services, because all I did was build a relationship for them and showed them how they can help their clients solve their problems using our
Yeah.
software. And so that's how I built a network of people selling our software. It was a share market analysis tool at the time.
Okay.
Um, so with that, I took that into my business consulting. And for me, it was always make sure that I'm delivering for the client. And again, using that analogy that I said before, you're there for one of two reasons, either to make them money or to make them look good. And
They make
so,
them look good. Yeah.
that's it. And so if I could make my customer look good in front of their customer, my job's done. And if I could make my customer money, my job's done. And
Everything
that's it.
is ticked. Yeah.
I think that's my take across management consulting, is to again, that trust, commitment, and care. 100%, you could trust me to be committed to deliver and to care about what it is that you needed in your business to make it grow and flourish. I was there 100%.
That completely, that actually puts a point across to me, I mean, to you, David. So, David, you were just mentioning a point to me, like, I mean, when you're selling a product to your clients, and you're saying that, the clients are convinced that they want to buy it and they want to utilize it for their requirements. Because what I feel is the product has done the talking and actually it fits their requirement, and they're like, okay, this actually fits our plan, and we will try to adapt this. So, on that case, I feel that, no particular extra sales pitch is required, right? If
That,
I'm conveying that theme.
that's right. That Akhil, that is exactly right. One of the things that I would love was demonstrating our product at exhibitions, at expos. So, as I said, probably from about 2002, 2003 onwards, and especially so 2003, around March 2003, the bull run, the share market bull run that led to the GFC began, right?
Yep.
And so we were building a business during this euphoric time. And I would go to traders' exhibitions and we would have a stand, and I would have people come up to me to ask us questions about our product. Now, I knew that these people were looking for a product to buy, and I knew that at this exhibition there was several of my competitors. I also knew that some of my competitors were sharks and snakes, and I did not like dealing with them. So I
Hmm.
thought, how can I be different? Well, I could either be a shark and a snake and say to a person, listen, get your credit card out and I'll show you what our software can do. Or I could just show them what our software could do, listen to what they had to ask, and answer their questions by showing how our software could be the one that they needed. There was no need for a sales pitch. There was just show them what we could do. I think the biggest thing was knowing that we were going to be there to support them.
Yep.
So if I could somehow show them that we had a phone number that they could ring for tech support, we had a website with a full knowledge base, we had a full learning library, we had a DVD education program, we had a face-to-face education program. That all was the support, right? Now this was before the big days of YouTube, right? You couldn't go and say, oh, we didn't. We actually had no videos, no training videos on YouTube. We had them all on a CD, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
so we go, and I used to go around the country. So I was actually well known because I was the one that would go around the country delivering a series of, we used to call them spend a night with bourse, right? So bourse being Bourse is the French word. Bourse is the French word for stock exchange or stock market. So we weren't a
Okay.
French company, we were an Australian company, but that was bourse data. So spend a night with bourse. And so I would go around the country teaching people how to use our software. So when it came to talking to them at an expo or at a sales stand, I would say to them, look, I'm a computer programmer. I'm one of the people that helped develop the software. I can tell you what the software does. I can tell you how it works. I can tell you how it solves the problem. If you want to buy it, that's your choice. And more than likely, they would turn around and say, yeah, right, give it to me because this is exactly what I need. If they needed something different that our software couldn't do, that's the difference. I would say, I can't help you with that. Unfortunately, you'll have to go to one of our sleazy competitors, right? They'll tell you they can do it, but we can't. And I think
Yep.
that was the difference, right? I'd
Yep.
rather say to a person, this is what we can do, this is what we can't, and this is how you can go about doing that on your own. Here's a workaround. But if you want a piece of software to do that in that task specifically, you'll have to go somewhere else. And that was just being honest, I think. Just
That's an
being
honest
honest.
answer. Absolute honest answer, David.
Yeah.
So, David, all this while we were just, talking about your entire journey, and you were just giving a complete timeline in a in a more deeper way. Now, this is a $1 million question. I would just like to term this as a $1 million question. So I just wanted to understand, David, from your end, like what led to the, inception of your startup company, Depthnode.ai, and how did that idea germinate from?
Yeah, sure. Look, very humble beginnings, I suspect. wasn't one of those, as you said, the $1 million question. I certainly hope that it becomes a multi-million dollar product, service, company. But ultimately, this just started because I think it was late 2023, a young cousin reached out, along with some young graduates who were friends of my son. But the young cousin reached out, and he was looking for an internship in his final year of his cybersecurity degree. And he said to me, David, look, I'm having trouble finding somebody to take me on as an intern and to give me I need to do 3 months internship in order to basically qualify for my degree. And I said to him, his name was Sebastian. I said, young Seb, listen, if you can't, he's a brilliant IT person. He knows, like this kid is, like from the age of 15, he was finding faults in company websites that could lead to cybersecurity breaches. He would reach out to them and help them solve it, right? This is how, like, in tune with what's going on he was, and how keen he was to be in this industry. And when he said to me that he had put out several applications and no one was giving him a chance, I thought, no, people are crazy, right? They obviously can't see what you are able to do. So anyway, I said to him, listen, if you can't get one, leave it with me. You're doing an internship with me. Well, come February, he hadn't found one. So I said, right, you're in, lock it in. Let's do all the paperwork. You can do one with me. So of course, I'm starting to think, what could we do? What cybersecurity thing can we do? And cybersecurity, maybe if we remember back to the start of 2024, cybersecurity was pretty big. It's still big, but it's pretty big, and it all came to an end with 2024 with CrowdStrike, causing the entire world to blow up because of a patch that they released. You might look up CrowdStrike and see what happened. Brought airlines down, brought everything down, and they're a cybersecurity. They're a company that's actually helps cybersecurity. So it was really big. Anyway, so I came up with the idea of, why don't we build a cybersecurity chatbot? Something that you've got available on your phone. If you get a phishing email, you can copy and paste that phishing email onto your cybersecurity assistant app on your phone, and it'll tell you, yep, this is a scam email, don't touch it, or share the link with me, copy and paste the link, and it'll tell you, yep, no, that's a phishing link, don't touch it. And so I thought, okay. So we started down this path. He wrote the requirements statement. We started working on the design and development documents, following the traditional methods, the things that we had to do to make sure that it ticked all the boxes for his internship. And so, because he was doing all the work, in order to try and speed this up a bit, I said to him, listen, why don't you write me an interface where I can build out all the questions that this chatbot will ask a user, and you then build the back end. So while I'm doing this, he's built me this sort of user interface, very, very clunky. It's a text-based, like a console-based app that allowed me to build. Well, he basically took, because we were building this thing using a decision tree. And I link back to decision trees because my 1992 thesis was about machine learning and AI using decision trees. So it just turned out that this cybersecurity problem we were trying to solve was very well solved using a decision tree.
Okay.
So I said to him, let's build something that uses a structured format for a decision tree, and we can, and you build me an interface, and I'll build out the questions, the user interface, you do the back end. And it started me thinking, well, why can't I just build an interface that allows anyone to build their own chat assistant? And so that essentially led to Depthnode. So once I started doing some feasibilities, I wasn't the only one that had thought of this idea. Unfortunately, there's lots of others. But as I began the feasibility of the size of the business, the chatbot industry is huge, is absolutely huge. And so I thought to myself, well, there's absolutely no reason why I can't join in on this game. And so what Depthnode is a platform that allows people to actually build their own decision tree and train an AI with their own knowledge, their own
Okay.
documents, their own procedures, their own flows, and then allows them to deploy a chat assistant or a conversational assistant. So that's what's led to that's the $1 million question. That's the answer to the $1 million question.
That's $1 million backstory, I can say for sure. And it was a beautiful inception for particularly.
Thank you, and I hope it leads. It certainly I hope it leads to certainly good things.
It
It
will
will, without a
it
doubt.
will definitely lead, and I'm pretty sure about that, David, because it's a niche thing, and whatever you're doing with respect to the decision trees, I think that'll pick up and people will start, finding its use case for sure.
Yeah, and look, the other thing that happened is because I mentioned that there was a couple of other young guys, and so two of them actually are on my development team for Depthnode. So they did an internship with me as well. So I had 5 students doing an internship with me last year. One was a business student, so he's helped build the business case for Depthnode. I had three other software developers, and we built another system for another client. And then they've moved over to be developers for me in Depthnode. And my young cousin who was going to join us for Depthnode, well, you know what? Someone finally recognised his talents, and and Swinburne Uni, which is where he was doing his course, actually offered him a full-time job in their cybersecurity team. I said to him, look, take that. That's your passion. That's where you need to be. I'm glad I was able to help you be recognised. And so so some happy endings there because he's doing the love of his life, and the guys that I'm with are very very happy working on our project together.
Awesome, awesome. Now, if I would just like to ask you this, David, like what are the key areas and industries, let's say domains that Depthnode.ai is currently focused on, and having said that, like what are your future plans? I mean, with respect to your startup company.
Yeah, sure. So our mission statement is that basically every product, service, and information business should have conversational AI. They basically should have a conversational AI assistant sitting on their website. So I think like our vision is that every website, our vision is that every website should have some sort of chatbot on it. Now, it'd be great if it was ours, but it isn't because there's so many chatbot providers already out there, and that's fine. I love that idea, and I also love the idea that I don't know if you heard, how obviously uh, not to bring anything bad to this podcast, but of course. We know that Elon Musk is part of the Department of Government Efficiency for Donald Trump, and he actually replaced an entire government department with a chatbot.
Oh my, that's bizarre, really.
Yeah, so he replaced hundreds and hundreds of workers that were working in a particular area of government that were there to support other areas of government. And what he did was he basically replaced that entire department with a chatbot service, which in a sense makes total and common sense because all they did was they loaded up all the knowledge that these support workers were using to answer questions for other areas of government. And so they've basically said, well, now instead of picking up the phone and calling one of the people that work in that area, just get online and ask the question on this chatbot and it's going to give you the same answer. Now, a lot of people will say, well, that's terrible. Hundreds and hundreds of people lost their jobs. Well, they may have lost their jobs, but maybe what happened is they could have been redeployed somewhere else. I think if people are worried that AI is going to take their job, I don't think that's an issue. Yes, will AI take jobs? Yes, it will. Will AI replace people? Yes, it will. But I don't think it should be a worry. I think that people and organizations need to embrace the use of AI, because I think AI will create more jobs.
Exactly.
AI, don't be worried. If you're a computer programmer, don't be worried about AI taking your job. AI is going to need more programmers, right? So I have this vision that basically every website should have an AI assistant on it, because who's got the time to go and read what's on a website anymore, right? What we want today is we want something that's going to make life a bit easier. This is why they invented the washing machine. Years ago, the ladies or the guys, whoever would do the washing in the households, they would go down, like my grandmother 100 years ago would go down to the local stream with her wooden washing board, her basket of washing, and a bit of homemade soap, and she would be scrubbing the clothes on that zigzag wooden washing board to wash them. That's how
Yeah,
it was done 100 years ago. you know,
exactly.
and then they invented the washing machine to give people more time. That's why we have dishwashers, because we don't want to wash our dishes. We want to stick them in the dishwasher. But have all these things given us more time? Akhil, answer that question. Do we actually
Yeah.
have more time?
No, I mean, it depends. Again, things are, I mean, the complexity has increased with respect to more of these things.
Exactly. Our life seems to be consumed more and more and more. So thank God we've got the washing machine and the
Yeah,
dishwasher and the steam press to press our suits and all of those things, because those time-saving machines have allowed us to take on more in life, right?
yeah,
And I think that, and that's where I'm hoping that this industry will boom. I think that chatbots is a huge industry. I think the chatbots is a huge industry, and I think that it's just going to grow. So our vision is that basically our platform can be used by retail staff, to train new staff, to help customer service staff help their customers. Obviously, if somebody has a chatbot or an AI, I don't like the use of the word chatbot, right? I think it's overused, right? I much
yeah,
rather the
yeah,
word AI assistant. So if somebody has an
exactly.
AI assistant on their website, they can simply go there, ask ask that assistant what it is that they want, and the assistant comes back and tells them straight away if that service or that product is right for them. If you need to train new staff, if you've got a new staff person answering the phone, that new staff person isn't going to know all the answers. But if she's supplied with a pre-trained AI assistant, when a
Exactly.
customer asks her, how long does it take to ship this particular order? She can quickly type in how long does it take to ship an order, and the AI assistant comes back instantly with an answer. And so that customer service person can be helping that customer straight away, first day on the job. Um, so
Exactly.
we aim to be able to provide these either on a website, on a standalone web page, as a standalone message service, and we plan right now to launch it to some niches, right? So we're looking for niche areas, maybe individual educators, professional service consultants, maybe like say psychologists or allied health practitioners. As I said, the educators, they're I think a big thing, because anybody who delivers educational information to people could easily load up all of their knowledge into something like an AI assistant, and then deliver that AI assistant to all of their students. So look, the plan is obviously that we're looking at launching the service in the next couple of weeks as an alpha test, and I'm hoping as a way to ask your listeners for a bit of assistance, is maybe if they could go to the Depthnode.ai webpage and click on the link that says join up as an alpha tester. And if they're willing to do a bit of testing for us, we'll give them a few weeks of full access to our service, and we'll let them know when alpha testing begins. So if they'd like to sign up as an alpha tester, we'll reach out to them in due course and allow them to have full access to our service, to do as much training and testing as they like, give us some feedback, and we hope to be able to reward them with a small gift as well. And if they'd like to use our service, we'll come up with an arrangement going forward as well.
Wow.
So that's if Akhil, if your listeners would like to do that, just visit www.depthnode.ai and sign up as an alpha tester, or find out more about our information.
So listeners, I think that's an open invite from David to you all. So, I mean, feel free to, just, pop yourself into that website and then, get ahead with the alpha testing. So, I mean, David, firstly, I mean, that's a unique plethora of list. And especially, I'm actually blown by the way you were talking about the psychologists and then the AI educators. I think this kind of an AI assistant would be really, really effective for them, going forward.
Yeah, it will be. I think for any organization that delivers, look, the product area is very well covered, especially e-commerce. There's in our feasibility study, we as of September last year, there was 400 million e-commerce websites just in English-speaking countries, right?
Yep.
Now, if I look at that, right, so and I look at all of our competitors together, there's no way that we're servicing 400 million websites, right? So our industry currently, with all of us that are in here, we're not servicing 400 million websites, and that's just e-commerce. So that's the product. But then there's the service and information businesses as well. So there's hundreds and hundreds of millions of businesses out there globally, just in English-speaking countries, that could benefit from an AI assistant. Now, I don't want all you listeners to go out there and start up a competitor against me, please.
No,
don't do that.
Not.
It's hard work. An AI startup is hard work, I can tell you.
Absolutely.
Many sleepless nights and long hours. But certainly there's hope. There's a light at the end of the tunnel that we can achieve good things, and we can help our clients build their businesses as well.
Truly. Now heading on to the success stories, David, like any success stories, David, that you would like to share with respect to the planning and implementation of the business and the ICT projects?
Yeah, look, I think I've spent quite a number of years as a business consultant. Probably the primary service I delivered would have been project management, and I've also been I did a fair bit of high level, or not intensive training in project management delivery. I was big on delivering projects on time and on budgets, and I became quite good at picking when the project was going to end, when we're going to finish. But one of the things that measures the success of a project is, what is a successful project? And I think that the answer to that is made up of a few parts.
All right.
But I think it can be boiled down to this. There's a saying when you get married, happy wife, happy life. Well, I think project success is happy customer, happy project. But it's not just the customer, right?
Yeah.
I think that it involves everybody. So not only do you have to deliver a project on time and on budget, which will keep your customer happy, but I think that the people who a customer might be an organization, and your project might be impacting 600, 700, 800 stakeholders, right? Now, a stakeholder is in fact anybody that's impacted by the project that you're delivering. And we talk about change management. One of those things in change management is an impact statement. And it's quite good when your impact statement captures everybody involved, every single user that is affected by what you're doing, by the project you're delivering. And I think that if you could get 80% or better acceptance by your users, by the organization, the team that's delivering the project, and you as the project manager, if all of those parties are happy, then you've got project success.
Yeah.
And so I'll lead to this one, I'll give you one success story, given that we're, a fair bit in on this podcast. I don't want our listeners to fall asleep straight away. Probably one of the best successes that I've had, and I've had some great moments in my career, and especially when we, if I term a project taking Bourse data to a public listing on the share market, that would have been the most exciting time of my life, and that was probably one of the most stressful projects that I've ever had to deliver. But a more recent one was for the not-for-profit space, and it was for one of Australia's leading NDIS providers. And what had happened was the NDIS delivers technology to these providers and says, you've got to use our system. Now, the NDIS system provided by the NDIA, the agency that administers the NDIS, it's very locked, very secure. You can't, well, it used to be. It's very different now, okay, very different now, but I'm talking probably back 5 years ago, 4 or 5 years ago. It was very locked down, very secure. You couldn't connect to it. You couldn't integrate with it. You couldn't get any information out of it. You couldn't put any information into it. And so the organization that I was consulting with, they were basically using two systems. They had two screens on their desk, two monitors, two computers, two keyboards, two mice, right? So imagine they would have the NDIS system on the left and their internal system on the right. And imagine a desk with two monitors, two keyboards, two mice, and everything. You'd almost have to be ambidextrous, using this mouse on your system and this mouse on the government system, and then this keyboard on one and this keyboard on the other. I mean, you'd go nuts, right?
Absolutely.
So we came up with a concept of putting in an old piece of technology called a KVM switch, a keyboard video mouse switch, right? These were things that were used in the old server days where you had 10 servers in a rack and only one monitor, one keyboard and one mouse, and you need to switch between the boxes, to control each one. This is before the advent of VNC or TeamViewer, right? Okay. So what we decided to do was we'd get this old piece of technology, a single little push button switch that would be attached to one of the keyboards. We'd get rid of the clutter on their desk, only have one screen, one computer, one mouse, one keyboard, and this little button. So actually, sorry, two computers. So there were still two computers because one was the government's computer, the agency's computer, and one was the organizational computer. But that could sit in the background. Okay, so that was fine. We could sit that behind the monitor. But in front of the monitor was only one. And all the user had to do was push the button to switch between agency computer or local computer.
Yep.
Now, we did a fair bit of planning, a fair bit of consulting. We ran a few pilots because this was going to be implemented across 18 locations in Victoria. It impacted about 700 staff. And so we needed to get it right. And once we got the feedback and we started to roll the project out, the project was approved, we got the funding, because it was about look, it wasn't a big project. It was probably about $500,000, $600,000 worth of rollout. But we had to go across and change 600, 700 desks, right? Because this is pre-COVID, so everyone was still working in the office. Yeah, there was no working from home yet. As we began to roll this out, the feedback we got was so great. It was like, oh my God, this is fantastic. You know how much time I'm saving? It just makes me so happy. This is when you start to get the feeling that this is going to be a good project.
Yep.
And by the time we finished, not only did we finish, I think it was about $60,000 under budget, which was awesome. We finished it pretty much to the day that the project we said we were going to finish. And at the end of the project, I took the entire project team out and we had this massive lunch.
Yeah.
Like we celebrated to the core what achievement we had made to deliver this on time under budget. But the feedback that we got was incredible. The resounding success of this project came from all areas because it came from the users, it came from management. The team was happy. Like when we were rolling this out, we were having fun rolling this out, right? Joking around, making sure that we're all happy, we're all safe, because we would have to be under desks pulling cables out. So making sure that safety was a priority, motivation was there, we were doing the job right, we had all the tools that we needed to do, we could deliver it efficiently, and at the end, we were all happy. There was success from all stakeholders. And that I term a successful project. And I think that that is probably one of the best success stories that I can share with you.
That's a beautiful success story, David. So, David, before we actually conclude our podcast session, so David, we'll just take a pretty lighter route this time because earlier it was all about technical, it was all about your tenure and the inception of your, startup company, Depthnode. Now we're going to take a lighter route in the form of a rapid fire. So it's going to be, your basic interests and your likes. So
Okay.
the first question to you, David, what is your favorite sport? Which sport do you prefer? Is it cricket or is it footy?
I'd probably say more soccer. Yeah, my favorite. If I have to pick a favorite sport, it's soccer. But I enjoy footy as well. Like I was recently invited to a game. I think it was Geelong and Collingwood. A mate of mine had invited me along to the match. He's a Collingwood fan, and he goes, "You," because I'm an Essendon. I'm a Bombers supporter.
Okay.
And he said to me, "You're gonna have to barrack for Collingwood tonight." I said, "Yeah, no worries, no worries. I'll barrack for Collingwood." And I loved it. He's sitting in the stand, and it was a nail biting game. In the end, the Cats Geelong won by I think a couple of 2 points or 3 points, but it was a nail biter the whole way through. And my sister-in-law goes for the Cats for Geelong, so secretly I was barracking for Geelong, but for my mate I was barracking for the Pies. So yeah, I coached soccer. I coached my son's soccer team for 4 years and was manager for 2 years. So I love soccer as well.
You love soccer. So, David, in our previous conversations, you told me that you are Italian by origin, right? So, if I would just like to ask you this, like, who's your favorite Italian footballer or Italian soccer player of all time?
Oh wow. So a goalkeeper, Buffon, would probably be, and that's interesting, and it's only because I I was a goalkeeper. So as a kid growing up playing soccer, I don't know, maybe it was because of my big stature and not very good on the field. I was made goalkeeper, and it just turned out not that I influenced him in any way, shape, or form, but my son loves soccer. He still plays today as a 23-year-old, and he's always played goalkeeper. Um,
Okay.
so yeah, but look, the Lionel Messi's, and obviously, yeah. Look, there's a few big names, but if I'm to name one, the goalkeeper Buffon is probably the one that I would go for.
That's an interesting choice for sure. Now, David, what's your favorite Indian food that you like to eat?
Oh, right. Um, oh, right. Well, a Rogan Josh. I don't know if that's
Rogan
anything.
Josh.
That's
Okay.
Rogan Josh comes to mind, but I love absolutely a fish curry. So I'm just trying to think of I'm trying to think of the name of it. I haven't had Indian food for a while because my stomach doesn't seem to like it anymore. But as
Okay.
a young 20-year-old, the biryani and the dals and what's the lassi, the yogurt? Oh,
The
I
mango lassi.
love a mango lassi. Beautiful, absolutely amazing. So when you're having a hot Rogan Josh, you need the mango lassi to just cool everything down.
It balances out. Yeah, for sure. For sure.
So yeah, love Indian food.
Awesome, awesome. Now, if I have to, ask you this, like to choose your favorite film franchise, what would it be? Would it be Star Wars, Harry Potter, Indiana Jones, or James Bond?
Oh, okay. Out of those, Star Wars. Star Wars. In fact, it's funny because as a way, one of the ways that we're testing depth node is we've actually built a Star Wars expert AI assistant, and I,
Oh,
I won't tell you the link because it's going to be absolutely inundated. But my son, who loves Star Wars as well, so we've built this Star Wars expert, and it was just a bit of playing around, bit of joking. And last night, I said to my son, you know, go on, test it out. So we went to the site, and pops up with the assistant, and then all of a sudden he came up with this stuff like I haven't even heard of it. It was something about who were the something wielders, warrior wielders, who used a purple lightsaber. And I thought, what the hell? Anyway, it came back with the answer, and he goes, "Oh, crikey, got it right."
wow.
So the reason I love Star Wars, and I'm not into it. I'm not into it as my son had Star Wars encyclopedia. He knows as a kid, he grew up with the Star
Oh,
Wars encyclopedia. So you could ask him a question about any Star Wars character, and he could tell you their weight, their size, their height, what planet they're from, what
oh,
clothes they wear, what their favorite weapon is. Incredible. But he's watched all of the Star Wars series. He's watched all of the Clone Wars series. And whereas you see, the first movie I went to was E.T. So when the movie E.T. came out, actually, no. Sorry, that was my second movie as a kid. The first movie I went to was in 1978 when Star Wars came out. So Star Wars, which was Episode 4, A New Hope, um, that was my first movie ever as a kid. So it all
okay.
started there. Yeah, that's right.
I mean, true, totally. Your son is a, huge fanboy. I would say he's not like, I mean, a Star Wars follower, a complete fanboy, a complete
Oh yeah,
fan. I would just say to, I mean, I have no words for that. I'm not getting to, comprehend that thing too
yeah, yeah,
much.
yeah. No, he's incredible. Yeah, absolutely amazing when it comes to Star Wars. But then that's the same thing. Like he took on Minecraft. So when he was
Okay.
yeah, probably, well, in grade 4. So what that makes him about 9 or 10. He We actually built him a Minecraft server, and somebody gave him access, or bought for him. I think Minecraft membership at the time was like $15 UK. I think it was. I can't remember. It was about like $20 Australian. So I think it was about $5 or $10, £10, because you bought it directly from Mojang in the UK, I think. Um, anyway, and we built this Minecraft server, and he did the same thing. He got to the point where he actually knew every single thing on Minecraft, every single, element, stone, tool, just incredible. And he knew everything about it. So yeah, he has a passion for those type of things. Yeah. Anyway, back to
Awesome.
me.
Awesome. All right. So, David, if I would just like to ask you personally, like, what is that Italian code that you would like to give to the newcomers or freshers in the IT industry? What is that Italian code that you follow up?
So say that again. An Italian quote, right?
Yeah.
An Italian quote that I would give to newcomers to the IT industry.
Yeah. Like, how do you, hawk the pressure? How do you, take up with new challenges? Something like that.
Okay, all right. I'd probably say in Italian. Well, I don't know if it's proper Italian or or if it's the dialect from where I'm from. But I'd say va travaglia, va travaglia. It is Italian. Va travaglia means go work. work hard, all right? Trabaja duro, all right? Work hard. In Trabaja duro, work hard, because that's and I suppose it's a bit of work hard and work smart, right? Because if we can work smart and use everything that's around us, and especially
Yeah.
making the best use of AI, what AI has to offer us today, that will build your career.
Absolutely, absolutely. Now, David, thank you so much for taking time from your busy schedule and being part of my podcast session. It was an absolute pleasure having you, being part of this, initiative. And David, I mean, this plan has just been like, what do I say? Like, I mean, over a month, right? You know,
Yeah,
everything
yeah,
for it to transpire
we've been it's taken a bit of well we met at what was it, we met at a Microsoft conference or something like
at a
that,
Microsoft conference.
and
Absolutely.
you were just casually listening in to a conversation I was having with a couple of other youngsters there. It was funny that day. I actually felt as if I was the oldest person
Really?
in at this conference. I was looking around thinking, oh my God, everyone I think here is younger than me. But then I realized there was a couple of old veterans in the back somewhere, so made me feel a bit better. But it was lovely to have met you that day, and obviously the opportunity. You put the opportunity forward to me, so thank you again. And yes, it's been about a month in the making, and you
Yeah.
know a few obstacles here and there that we had to get out of the way, but here we
Yeah.
are.
Yeah.
We've finally done it.
We've finally made it. Mission accomplished.
Mission accomplished. Absolutely. Well done.
So, on this note, this is your host, Akhil Navluri, signing off. So, take care, goodbye, stay tuned, au revoir, thank you.